Welcome to the Benjitucker.fit podcast. I'm Coach Chris with Coach Benji. Together, we have helped hundreds of men build muscle and lose fat to get to the best shape of their lives. Today, we talked about our strategies to lose fat while going out to eat.
So let's get into going out to eat. We have so many clients, so many people that ask us. They usually either have a habit of going out to eat a lot, or because of their work demands, they're typically eating out at lunch with coworkers, or maybe they're a salesperson. They're doing lots of dinners because that's the nature of their job. It's difficult to navigate this because typically the things that you would get that are highly palatable, very tasty at these restaurants are going to be high in carbs, high in fats, oftentimes high in sugar too, and very easy to eat a lot of it. Cooked in lots of oils, just packing on tons of calories, no protein. So right off the bat, when you hear this and a client comes to you and they say, Chris, I eat out a lot. I have no idea how to follow the principles you're telling me to when I go out to eat this much. What's the first thing that comes to mind and that you try to respond with to this person? What are you thinking about?
Well, it's more preparation. It's basically two big things no matter what topic it is, but environment and preparation are two of the biggest things. So we'll talk more pre-planning things first, so in order of operations. So in this camp, if you have the option, or you know what you're going to eat the next day, or you have the actual option to plan, then knowing what you're going to get the day before is the most important thing. So if you're a person that's like, I'm not cooking, I'm not gonna bring a meal or anything like that, then being that you're probably at work or working from home, that you have an idea of what's around you, or an idea of what you normally get. Yeah. So the easiest things to be doing would be making substitutions that are more definitely protein centric, that are not breaded and cooked generally with less oil, and that's not mixed in. That's the simple overall arching theme that you can think of. But
absolutely,
pre-planning is the easiest thing you can do, because if it's at a place if it's fast food, like they have every possible nutrition facts up on PDF on their websites. Yep. If it's at a chain restaurant, like a Chili's,
they usually do too.
They usually do as well. It's when you get into trouble when it comes to like mom and pop shops, very fancy places. They usually don't have the calories or nutrition facts on there, but we'll get into that more. But you could definitely have strategies for when you just generally go out, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, so maybe we could talk about then going into strategies before even going out. So like we're going to talk about the strategies in a little bit about you've never been to a place before and you don't know what the calories are. It's a mom and pop Italian restaurant and you have no clue what's in anything. We'll talk about that in a second, but the best thing you could do if you have the opportunity to is if, like Chris said, it's a fast food place or a chain place, is to look at the menu online beforehand. Look at the nutrition facts, because if you're going into it knowing at least the bare principles from prior podcasts that we'll reiterate right now, that you should probably be aiming for 2 servings of protein. That's probably going to be about 40-50 grams of protein, and you have a certain calorie goal based on your goal. If you're cutting calories, obviously you're going to be more stringent with that. That's kind of who we're talking to when it comes to navigating going out and figuring out what to eat. So once you get that information, it becomes a hell of a lot easier. You scan the list, see, okay, this is all the things that fit within the calorie goal and protein goal that I'm aiming for. And out of this, there is 2 food options that I would really enjoy. And then you simply pick one of those. I would say that right off the bat, that is the easiest strategy you could follow when it comes to going out to eat and perfectly staying on track to the best of your ability. Of course, maybe you'll talk about in a second the strategies you could also follow to guarantee that if your favorite dish does not fall within that realm, that you could still be on track for the day, maybe just not on that meal, because there's a difference between the two.
Yeah, if you're going to, I would say is if you're going to go out for dinner, this is mostly pertaining to dinner, because then you're backloading with the food there. So you would want to front load protein first with the least amount of calories. So if you know that you really enjoy getting wings at B-Dubs, I think it's my brother, honestly. If you enjoy getting wings at B-Dubs and you just can't help yourself but have 10 wings and fries, I don't know how much it costs. It's probably more expensive than I remember eating there 5 years ago. Then it's like, okay, It's already about 1,000 calories, give or take, but it's something exorbitant amount for.
Yeah.
And to be fair, there's actually a lot more protein in that dish, more than most dishes. So, you would just want to preload protein first in the day. What that could look like would be breakfast could just be, if you even have breakfast, could just be like egg whites, 1 egg, chicken sausage, boom, Greek yogurt, out, done. That's like less than 300 calories. Then it's lunch is like a big ass salad with the leanest meat you could possibly think of.
Yeah.
So you in a full day, you already have only 600 calories, let's just say. And then you're an average sized man. So we're going to average it out 2,000 calories. That means you still have 1,400 calories to play with at dinner.
And you already hit most of your protein.
And then you already hit a lot of your protein. You're already at 80 to 100 grams of protein. You probably just need a protein source at dinner.
Yeah.
And you'll probably clear that. So that is one way you can preemptively go about front loading your protein for the day.
And then another, I would say, more methodical way, but way where you would have to be a hell of a lot more disciplined, is the whole week before approach. So if, for example, you plan that, you have to have this exact dish, it doesn't really fit in your calorie goal whatsoever. You know that if you go out to eat at this restaurant and have this exact dish, you'll be 500 calories over on the day, and that is not good. Okay, so the goal is, how can we, if you have to eat that under every circumstance, then what can we do to allow you to eat that and still stay on track for the week? The best approach in that case, in that situation, if you're disciplined enough, would be to, if it's 500 calories, can we limit 100 calories per day across the 5 days before that? So it's not a dramatic measure. A lot of people, what they do is they say, oh, I ate 500 calories over, I have to eat less the next week, or I have to burn this off. But what that does is reinforce the idea that you're punishing yourself for doing something wrong, and you're looking at it as a negative, when instead, eating over on that day, if you built up to it the right way and eliminated calories throughout the week prior, it actually is rewarding because it's you staying on track with what you had already pre-planned. So it's motivating, you feel good about yourself, and you're staying on track, and you're likely to continue following the diet and staying on track with the diet that you have been following, instead of allowing yourself to fall off, because eventually it just gets too difficult to keep having to go through this endless feedback loop of, I ate too much, and now I have to starve myself and burn off more calories the next day. That's not sustainable. You're not going to feel happy about yourself. You're actually going to hate yourself if you do that. So the best approach would be, okay, I'm going 500 calories over that night, 5 days before. Know that you're going to do that if possible, and eat 100 calories less. That would be in the scenario of you're not trying to optimize that meal. You just know you want something that's very tasty that already doesn't fit within your calorie goal. So you just have to have the foresight and knowledge to know, okay, yeah, this dish right here, it's way too high calorie for my goal, but know that going in. Don't last second be like, I have to have this dish, but you didn't plan it out. So preparation is by far, more than anything else, still probably going to be the most important factor going into this. And then to all the people that are wondering, okay, well, what do I do when I can't prepare? Someone asks me last second, I'm not going to say no. I want to spend time with my family, or this is for work. What do they do then? What do these people do that don't have the time to prepare?
Yeah, so then it comes down to principles. And if you don't have time to prepare, and you have a family, or you have a last minute meeting and your coworker says you have to go pick up some food, then the principle should be that you're trying to find things that have lean proteins, some fiber, and then hopefully just not cooked in oil, right? Those are just the major things that you're looking for when you're going out to eat. Hopefully that you're not getting things that are completely mixed together as well. So pastas, burgers, fried rice, even though those are all great tasting foods. And look, they're not unhealthy either. Just when you go out to eat, you just don't know how much they're putting in. And then anytime somebody does, we make sure as coaches to have our clients overestimate what they put in. So if you think it's rice is easier, but if you estimate 1 cup of fried rice, I just assume that there's at least 1 to 2 tablespoons of oil in there. On top of that,
like 120 more calories, right?
That's 240 more calories.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. Well, I think that's we do that so well. I think that's where we actually have a lower number on the scale the next day than we'd expect, for that reason alone, that we overestimate, which is a good thing.
I'd rather you overestimate if you're trying to lose weight. So
yes,
any client that's trying to lose weight and they go out to eat a lot more, this is just a good way of finding out of how much people are actually putting in your food when you go out. It's substantially more than you think 99% of the time. Yeah. So when you do go out to eat, and you are not prepared, the principles you should follow is preferably things that are not mixed together, things are not breaded, that are oily overall, and that they have more protein-centric things that are usually grilled.
Yeah, protein base.
Yeah, grilled or cooked on a flat top, and then also fiber-based. Those are your big things to look out for when you're going out to eat, and that's just the general principles of going out to eat. And then obviously,
and then how about when it comes to like people are like, I need to have my carbs. Like, what do you say to those people? Because obviously there's principles we can follow there too. With like, I would say probably choosing a starchy carb if you're going to, or just ideally if you like vegetables, like a handful or two of vegetables.
Yeah, you basically want it to be the base. The base of it should always be one or two protein servings as best you can. And if you can't get that, then you definitely got the preload. Then if you do get that, then it's like you probably should be choosing a fiber source, so like any veggie or fruit. And then it just depends on the person. It's just if you have a lot of weight to lose, then I would probably not eat carbs as much. And if you do, it will be starchy.
Yeah.
But like the carbs that we think about is actually more a combination of carbs and fats, like French fries. It's
exactly
great as potato cooked in oil, have a lot of fat in it.
Yeah.
Onion rings, same thing, fried onion. So
yeah, and also depends on how lean the protein source you're getting to. Like if you're getting a wild caught sockeye salmon versus you're getting a ribeye steak, it's going to be very different, the calorie to protein ratio. Like if you're getting a salmon, wild caught sockeye salmon, I mean, ideally if it's not cooked in too much oils, which it probably is, but if it's not, right there you do have more calories to play with. So it really just comes down to how disciplined you're willing to be. And that's where I tell people too, if they're like, I have to have fries. It's like, okay, well, I'll meet you halfway and at least say, get a leaner protein source and eat like half the serving of fries, because chances are they're giving you way too much in the first place. Like a diner, for example, they're filling an entire freaking platter with fries.
Yeah, I think it's approximately the average size fries is like 11 to 15 is one serving for 150 to 200 calories.
Yeah, exactly. It's like not that much at all. Whereas like you have something, if you choose to, which, obviously we're recommending you should, if you were to have like a baked potato or something like that, I mean, it's going to be so much more filling for an equivalent or less amount of calories. So, same thing goes when we talk about just replacements in the food pantry of potato chips. It's like, or Tostitos, who wants to have 10 chips for 140 calories and then just stop at 10 chips? Like you're almost a little crazy if you can stop at 10 chips. No one wants that, right? So it's like you almost shoot yourself in the foot by trying to minimize eating that type of food when you go out, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I try to tell people it's like the sides, try to stay near like starchy carbs and pure starchy carbs. So definitely not things that are mixed, fried, or any of that nature. And you're like Chris, that's literally everything that when I go out to eat, it's like I want to enjoy the food. And it's like, yes, you do. So it's a question of if you want to enjoy the food, then being prepared going into it is more important.
Good point.
If you're like, okay, I want to learn substitutions and things that align with my goals and also go out to eat and enjoy time with my friends, then it's like, okay, well, we have to manipulate what's inside the meal composition of your plate or the things that you order at the restaurant.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's actually a really good way to look at it, is if I think that's like the key to the whole podcast, honestly. That's the key to the whole equation is like step number one. If you're thinking about it as like a chart of what you should do, like a big graph that like branches out, it's like number one, like you said, are you trying to just really enjoy the food for taste, or, is it for work and family and, last second where you can't prepare too much? It's like, so number one, can you prepare? Can you not? And then after that, it's like, okay, well, if you can prepare, then it's, is it important to you to 100% align with your goals in that actual meal, or is it important to have something that tastes good? And then you go, okay, well, I'm going to look at the menu and how many calories protein. If not, it's like I'm going to eat less in the days leading up to it. And you just kind of branch out and you figure out based on your goals and your level of discipline and what you're actually willing to do, what the best option is. And I think on that kind of tree that you just explained, there's an option for everyone to be able to stay on track with their goals and keep hitting their target numbers.
Mm-hmm. And then while you're there, here's some easy tips that just prevent you from eating a lot of calories or a lot of extra hidden calories. So besides the ones like I mentioned before, but easy things like any restaurants that give you nuts, bread, chips, crackers, anything that leads up to before you even order anything, usually those things are meant for you to be easily able to snack on because it's right in front of you and it's before the meal. So they're trying to, one, give you something that's very cheap, that you also have a good positive reinforcement of because it's included with the meal. Two, it is very easily to be eaten, so therefore it's very easy to load up in.
You get 1,000 calories right there of just eating bread.
Yeah, so if you go to an Italian restaurant, they give you a bunch of bread, and it's usually free if you ask for more.
Yep.
Get that in olive oil, super easy. That's like any loaf of bread, you probably have 3 between a family, at least 3 slices between a family. So you get 2 of those. That's already 600 calories of the oil.
Yeah, I used to eat the whole thing. Like if they give like 2 loaves, I would eat a whole one. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. You go to a Chinese restaurant. Some Chinese restaurants will give you the sweet and sour crackers that you can dip in. You go to some American restaurants, they'll give you nuts to start off the meal. So any of those things are just easy ways to start having you eat, load up on calories, and then you eat less of the foods that they give you, or it seems like you're already full going into the meal. So easily eliminating those right off the get-go will be an easy way to eliminate hundreds of calories without even thinking about it. This is when you sit down at a restaurant, okay? And then once you're sitting down at the restaurant, let's say you don't eat those. It's already hard because imagine not having bread with your pasta with an Italian restaurant. Is when you're there, that's when you're looking for things that are usually grilled, blackened, Cajun, anything in that realm. So you don't have all these extra calories with the oils and stuff like that. Yeah. We still estimate it, but just know that there's a lot less oil being used.
Definitely.
And then hopefully that it's not breaded. And then if you do add breaded, that's already considered as a carb source.
Yeah, basically. Well, here's another one, is liquid calories. That's a huge one. Yeah. Because, please, guys, do not drink calories when you go out to eat. To me, that's probably one of the most underrated tips that people forget about. It's like, I feel like we could give every single tip and then someone will drink 10 beers or have 5 Shirley Temples and be like, I followed everything Coach Chris and Coach Benji told me to do. So we got to put that in there too, as liquid calories. Cause I mean, one glass of Coca-Cola filled to the top is going to be 160 calories right there or something for just one. And typically people will get 2 to 3 refills. So you're getting you can get approximately 500 calories right there extra on top of your meal. So even if you're following every principle, it's insignificant that you did because you went so much over.
Yeah. For liquid calories, the biggest ones were definitely sodas. So if you do drink soda, it's at least a simple step is to go to a diet soda.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one. 2 is then it'll be all right, well, maybe go to seltzer. So then you also get the sugar hits, even if it's artificial sugar. Then also people who drink, it's we'll have a whole podcast on alcohol.
Definitely.
But just know that if you do get a lot of sugary drinks, especially now it's summer, that you're getting margaritas, a lot of frozen alcoholic beverages, that they add up so fast. So when you do go out to eat, you most likely want to just eat the foods that's on your plate and not try to have too many calories outside of that. So just for perspective, if you get an average margarita with a margarita mix, it's at least for 8 ounces and 8 ounces. Basically, they serve you a lot more than you think.
The specialty drinks are always the ones with just more calories in general, right? Because they're adding all this different stuff.
Yeah, margaritas, sangria, a bunch of fruits, a bunch of sugars, just to make it taste really, really good. So, and most of the time they're not making it from scratch. Not squeezing the actual lime. They're not putting the actual fruits in there.
They're putting that syrup in there and stuff.
Yeah, it's all the syrups and stuff like that. Unless you go to a really fancy place and you're spending $25 per drink. And
there we go.
Yeah, it's also vastly different when I have tried those places. All I know is it's hundreds of calories more, and it's usually not worth it in terms of calories. Because when you drink the calories, it basically goes as if nothing ever happened in your stomach. It literally goes in, it fills up a little bit of liquid, but in terms of the fullness that you'll feel, almost be non-existent.
Will probably make you hungrier too because it's so sweet. And then as soon as that comes crashing down, you'll be even hungrier. I mean, you know what? Probably is the best example to prove to people this is people who are big cereal enjoyers before bed.
Interesting. Because
I don't know, did you ever used to have cereal before bed?
I mean, maybe.
Okay, because I used to be someone that would... Okay, so maybe this isn't that common part of the audience, but I'll use this as an anecdote for myself then to explain. So obviously there's a lot of sugars. It's very sweet if you're having Fruity Pebbles, Fruit Loops, something like that. And anytime I would have something very sweet before I'd go to bed, I'd wake up with that feeling where I was starving. I'd be like, why am I so hungry? Usually, most days I could wake up, I'm not hungry. Why is there random days where I am though? And then I realized that 10 out of 10 times where that happened, 100% of the time, it was because I had something very sweet right before I went to bed. And then that feeling was still there when I woke up, that it like ignited my hunger even more.
Yeah, if you eat carbs in general before bed, especially the ones that are super fast digesting, that's what happens. The blood sugar when you wake up is very low.
Yeah.
That I understand.
Yeah. And it was always with things that were generally sweeter too, but I'm guessing that's also because they're faster acting, I would think.
You digest really fast. I mean, that's why I have I mean, I get like the healthier cereal now, but like the healthier cornflakes, it's just straight up carbs, literally all carbs. And I eat it 30 minutes before my workout, and I feel completely fine. And that's because it goes like a shot of insulin into the bloodstream.
That's the way to do it. Maybe we should just get insulin shots for our pre-workout.
Or we die.
Be the next biggest thing in the market. Well, now the bodybuilders, I won't go off topic too much, but I think they take straight insulin. Like not even just IGF-1 promoting stuff anymore. Like they literally just take straight insulin, which is crazy.
That's a whole nother monster.
Yeah.
I know nothing about. That's
insane.
A whole nother monster. I have heard about it. I just don't know enough about it to talk about it.
Well, yeah, it's just crazy to think that, like, obviously but you're not retarded. Like, you know enough to know that, like, that's not healthy. So anyone who thinks, like, I'm going to take this straight insulin and shoot it into my body, like, that's just not a smart move.
Anything with hormone regulation, usually you want to mess with as best you can, for at least for natural people. So once you get into the other side of the spectrum where you're messing around with hormones, and like that's its own body of research, whether it's insulin, testosterone, you name it, all those other ones, steroids, things I don't know enough about to talk about at length. But in terms of basically anytime you want to go when you eat out, right? So we went over a couple big things now. So if I'll give you some caveats too. So we understand that we're human. So your friend comes into town, they give you a call last minute. You're already basically finished with calories for the day, but they still ask you to go grab a drink or grab some food because you barely see them. Look, there are life circumstances where things really don't happen, and they're one-offs. And yes, they might be against your goals. And I have been in that chair as well, where a buddy says like, hey, they went through something hard, and they're my best friend, and they wanted to go get a drink or go get something to eat, even though it's the end of the day or end of the night, or at a point where I don't have the luxury to indulge a lot of calories in. And guess what? Those are like the one-offs, and you can easily offset them later in the week. So I would say there are definitely circumstances where it happens. I think the biggest thing is that most of the time where you do have control, where you're able to dictate what you eat and when you eat, we just recommend that we use these principles as best you can. Not to say that if you have a wedding, a one-time event.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big one.
Right? Where there's, the specific food, or there's this actual restaurant that actually is known to have the best of this food. And then you get the opposite. Imagine going to a steakhouse and all you can have is like the grilled shrimp, right? We're not telling you to do that. We're just saying in general, when you do go out to eat at a regular restaurant at your local neighborhood town, that you probably have control of what you're doing, and it's not anything fancy. And guess what? The only people judging you are the people around you. So then it becomes a question of who's actually around you. But that you're able to control what you eat. And it's like, guess what? I can go to like a local restaurant right now. Like if I even just say in the basic ones around America, chains like Applebee's, Chili's, you can easily get stuff that's like completely like grilled chicken or like grilled chicken. There's like blackened chicken. There's lots of shrimps.
Yeah.
Stuff that's super, super easy. And then pair it with a side. It's like, I probably can get the rice. And I probably can.
Yeah, places you'd least expect to have stuff that's healthy because it's the place that's most expected for there to be fat people eating there. Yet there's still an option for you. The fat people just don't order it.
Yeah, and it's also the whole point is that it's not coated in the things that makes things taste well, which is lots of fat, lots of sugar, and lots of salt.
Yeah, because the people like that, they don't even know what a real food tastes like anymore. Not a chain restaurant, but a chain fast food place. One of the videos I did recently was at Popeyes, and I got the blackened chicken instead of the fried chicken because most people don't even know that that's on the menu, but it's right there. And I ordered that to prove a point. And I had to wait 10 minutes in line just because they had to make it fresh because no one asks for it. So I guess it's part of their initiative, whatever. We still have to have it because it doesn't seem to me very smart from a business perspective to say, okay, like no one buys this, but it still needs to be there. I'm guessing it's there because the leftover they could probably just bread and it's part of their initiative. Like if people want to be health conscious and eat there. Okay, cool. I had to wait 10, 12 minutes though, just to get it ready. Cause they're like, everything's pre-made. Like it's all here. They're used to making it this, like they got to take out from the back and so it tasted really good because it was brand new. But wow, yeah, that was eye-opening when I saw everyone's waiting in line. They're getting their meals in 10 seconds or less, and I'm there 10 minutes because I'm eating the healthier option that aligns with my goals.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say the last big one, before we recap the whole thing, and we'll kind of just graze over every single one that were pretty big. The last big thing would be, if you were to get your favorite foods, right, and you are purely going for taste, I would 100% recommend just getting protein somewhere in that meal. Right. So even if you I'm trying to think of it. I think I'm so detached from this now.
Yeah.
What I would say is yes, if you were to get, what's a big meal that people get that typically has no protein, but I think jambalaya, but they usually has at least Italian sausage.
Or just pure pasta.
Yeah. Pure pasta. Okay. So if you're truly there and you're getting a pure pasta dish, if it's Italian, if you're getting a pure pasta dish, they probably are giving you 2 to 3 servings of pasta, also cooked in oil, the noodles with the sauce going into it. So if you're having a regular pasta dish, that's almost 1,000 calories. I think if you really think about it, 600 calories from noodles. Sauce is at least 2 cups, and then 2 tablespoons of oil. So that is at least 1,000 calories. What I would say is, if you're at a restaurant, you have all that kind of stuff, or a mix. Definitely try to have one protein source, and then I would take 1/2 of the carbs and save it for later. Right? Easily.
That's fair. Yeah.
Easily to be done. It's you can still enjoy the food. The whole point is that you want to enjoy the food. If you're really there truly to be I want to enjoy the food and the quantity, then the mindset has to shift because your goals do not align with the action. So if you're okay, I want to have a little bit of both. I want to have my cake and eat it too. It's since it's so calorically dense and you still want to have your favorite foods, then that just means that something has to give. In this case, cut the carbs in half or the meal itself in half. That's not the protein source.
Absolutely. That's a really good way of putting that.
If you're enjoying this podcast, subscribe to it to get more content like this. Now, we talk about the current society and the politics around it. They're painting Kamala Harris and, what's his name? Mike Wars?
Oh, they just picked him last night or 2 nights ago?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I don't remember his last name.
Yeah, it's Wars or something.
Guys, we're the political experts. We don't even know but why would you want to know the guy's last name?
No, I was clicking on videos. I always seek out the other side. So if I follow more accounts that are
Warts, right? Warts?
Something like that. Yeah,
Warts.
There you go. I purposely try to find what people on the other end are watching.
Yeah.
So obviously if I'm watching more things like Tim Pool, Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, and anything in that regard, then they're obviously biased towards right now, towards more right-leaning, even though Tim Pool is technically a liberal, or was.
The words don't mean it. That's a whole thing. We could get really politically technical, but that's a whole thing. Yeah,
but I'm just saying is that you have a guy like that, a metalhead, he's a metalhead skateboarder, this complete, you just be okay, this guy just defines his stance, but whatever. The whole point is these guys are on one side of the spectrum now, and they talk about certain things. And then what we see and what other people see, I think this is more the big thing, more the big picture. Not that I know anything about the actual election. That if I were to go on my feed and I look at what you see on the videos, it's painting everything bad about Kamala. It's her. To be fair, she really can't speak a sentence that makes coherent sense.
Yeah.
But she gives no talking points on whatever topics is needed. She just says something about woke this, woke that.
Her website doesn't have policies on it.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So there are some things, there are definitely some telltale signs. But in terms of videos that you do see or the things that you watch, it will just be, for example, it's our future, our VP and our future president. And it'll be her walking out of the airplane, no words spoken, just saying hello. Yeah. And saying, hey, this is going to be the greatest term of all time. I'm just trying to look at it from the other side.
Well, it's epitomizing what we are saying, which is that she's not in there based on merit, but she actually is in there based on them thinking she's going to get votes because of her color and because she's a woman, right? The whole thing of America's ready for a black female president, the first one, because everyone wants the first this, the first that, and it's I don't give a fuck what it is. It's I don't care if it's who they are, in terms of their immutable characteristics. What I care about is that they're the right person to be the president. I think that's the whole point of electing a president, is that policies have consequences. They're supposed to run on, they enact policies or sign policies into law. They could veto them. They could sign them into law. And the consent agenda, now with the executive branch having so much more consolidated power, they could do a hell of a lot more than they were intended to do. So it's very important to choose someone who is actually meritorious of the position. But when your merit is, I look a certain way, and I would be the first of this kind to be in office, that's not much merit at all. It's actually the worst reason you could vote for someone.
Yeah, so I was just basically looking at what was going on my X feed, and that's what I saw was both sides are being fed very different things. And the one side was basically saying like basically like it's like Trump should have been shot or I would have finished the job.
Yeah.
And then the other side is like basically on the right side is like the whole like wokeism is dead and this is bad. It's painting good versus evil on both ends, and it's crazy. It's just crazy to me because it's like to be fair, there are a lot of things that have changed, and obviously I agree with some points more than others. But at the end of the day, if you actually sat down with a bunch of people, on average out of 100, you would honestly average that most people are on actually the same baseline of understanding on a lot of the topics and not disagree a whole lot about almost anything. But obviously you can just say one zinger of a line and then you can just infuriate an entire side. But if you actually sat down and had a conversation about policy, you probably could...
Policy. That's a key word because like it's like the interviews where people say, hey, Trump proposed this amazing policy and it was X, Y, and Z. People are like, that's so bad. And they're like, just kidding. It was Biden's policy. So like people don't know what they're talking about when it comes to policy. They just know the figurehead who said it and then what the media tells them to think about that person. And then as a result, that policy. But in terms of that's a good point in terms of, because I've been debating this in my head exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about strictly policy, I think that makes sense because of course, people are still going to have disagreements about policy, but I think by and large with a lot of them, like if you told the average person, hey, we should probably be taxed less and not spend all our tax dollars sending it to other countries, and there should be more transparency with it. I think most people will be like on board with that. Yeah. But then as soon as it hits the media and there's a certain agenda at play, all of a sudden it's like you want to kill the other person because they don't agree with that. So
well, it also bleeded into the corruption of what's inside. Basically, like it's like the salaries of government workers, what they're actually spending on in the U.S. government. People watching outside the U.S., which is like literally nobody right now. It's a zero sum budgeting format. So every year they spend, let's just say in this one branch, $100 million, and if you don't spend $100 million, then the next year rolls over and they give you a percentage of what you probably. Basically, whatever you spent is like an idea of where they'll give you again. So if you spend only $50 million one year, they'll probably give you like $75 million the next year. Then you do like $60 million, they'll give you $60 million. You know what I mean? They keep matching what you spend. So that's right now what's happening as a whole for spending on our taxes.
Yeah, well, I've talked about this with you a lot, but I believe during the Civil War, in the comments, if someone's commenting on this, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Lincoln raised the federal tax rate from 1% to 2%, and there was like protests in the streets, like violent protests. People were pissed about 1% to 2%. And it was like, what amazing things the federal government could do with this remarkable increase of 100%, 1% to 2%. Oh my gosh. Right now it's whatever it is, depending on your bracket. I think some people are around 30% plus.
I think you're mixing. There's federal and state, and
but I'm saying just federal.
I couldn't even.
What's the highest? Yeah, we have to see like the average bracket at the federal. No, I'm talking about federal though. Him raising it 1% to 2%.
All right, I'm gonna do the base income of $55,000.
Yeah, let's see what that is. But anyways, what I'm saying about that is back then that was a big deal, but people are still in a very good position. And then, we have now, and we take all this money, so much more money than the government should know what to do with. And it's spent on, it's going into politicians' pockets. It's going into other countries. Who knows how we're funding them or what shady business deals are going on. And, it's sad because it's the public, the federal government is public, but we don't even know what our money is going towards, right? If the taxes are supposed to be our safety net and help people in need, but where are the people in need actually being helped greatly? Like if anyone could point that out, that would be awesome, because chances are if you're taking, the average between state and federal, people are getting taxed 30-40%. I mean, that money, if it wasn't going at billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars to other countries, chances are it's going to help us a lot if it was allocated the right way, but it's just not. So, I mean, it's insanity to think that all of all of this taxes is a good idea.
It's 12. If you're an average person at $55,000 of taxable income, tax rate is approximately 12.6%
for federal at 55%. Okay, gotcha.
And single.
Okay, so it's 12 times more than the 1%, and then 6 times more than when they raised it to 2 and people were protesting. And now that it's at 12, it's like that's fine, right? That makes sense.
That's actually absurd. Yeah, we don't learn enough about financial history or economics history, realistically speaking.
Oh, not at all. Yeah, we didn't learn anything about that. We learned the definitions, like the kind of the textbook definitions of like, this is capitalism, this is socialism, this is that. And then that was kind of the end of that. We didn't learn anything beyond that.
No, we just had to memorize. We memorized dates, a lot of dates and a lot of events. So basically, and to be fair, I couldn't tell you a lot of them now. I was actually really bad with history because I could at the time I didn't associate with what was going on with a time with an event at a certain period. It literally all of our tests were. I'm not joking. I remember going through grade school and it was let's just say anything between basically from the 1200s to the 1500s. It would just be like what happened in 1202, what happened in 1207, what happened in this event, year.
I'm surprised you guys talked about those years more than anything.
No, I'm just giving you. I think
like imagine if it was like your biggest curriculum was like middle age English history in middle school. That'd be awesome.
What do we do? I mean, okay, from what I remember, definitely saw sophomore year of high school was British literature. So a lot of
okay, yeah.
And then British literature, and then it was also still world history. So it ties together in the curriculum.
Okay.
And then it was a lot of it was this event, like what happened in Europe or in England. What was the policy at 1812? The policy name. Didn't matter if I knew the policy. It was just like the name, year, name,
gotcha.
year, name.
Yeah, almost makes you dumber by that, right? It's like you memorize dates. Well, you don't even know it now, right? But at the time, you memorize these dates, but you're actually not learning anything. You're not learning to critically think. You're not learning the significance of that event. You're not learning about the political implications of that and how that relates to our present day. You would think history, the whole point in studying it is to learn what not to do, and then to also get ideas from the past to implement in the future in an even better way. And instead, none of those things happen. So it essentially renders history obsolete. And then what's the point? There is no point. The only point is that they could. The scary part about that too is that if it's at such a shallow extent where you're just memorizing dates and events, that they can almost get you to believe whatever you want in your head, because if they kind of dictate what you know, so to speak. And what you know is that like this guy bad, this guy good. This year this happened and that was bad. And this year this happened, that was good. Like if you're just looking at it in a very binary way like that, they can kind of believe whatever you want if the wrong powers that be are controlling the curriculum. So it's pretty dangerous.
Well, it's funny you say that because that's what just popped up was Elon Musk is suing an advertising coalition right now because of it being biased.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about what's the name of the advertising initiative? It's 90% news organizations, mainstream news organizations fall within it. I can't remember the name of it. But pretty much they try to dictate what an agenda of what these big media companies should be advertising, shouldn't be advertising, should be saying, who they should allow to speak, what types of thoughts they should be able to have. I can't remember the name of it though.
Yeah, it's not popping up. But basically that they're almost as criminal liability via the RICO Act.
What was that?
Against the RICO Act, they should be lawsuited against.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name. Wasn't that the thing that Ben Shapiro went to testify about too? Was it
Most likely.
Yeah.
Most likely. like I said, this is like I try to keep up with current events, but I usually just go through like one article, and obviously one article is not enough to know the information that's happening. I just know that's a big headline because he understands if
is it the Global Alliance for Responsible Media?
Something like that.
Yeah, it must be that. I heard about that a few years ago, and I mean, it sounds like 1984.
Yeah, basically you put out whatever you want. You're filtering information in the way that it suits an agenda. I think that's what it. At the end of the day, that's what it is. So I'm glad that he's fighting on this. He's fighting against it. It's so funny because like everybody hates people who are for Elon Musk fighting for freedom of speech. I'm obviously all for freedom of speech here. Man, this is gonna be we're gonna have such a political podcast.
It's just inevitable. If this is what we talk about.
I don't know if I like talking about it. It's just more of a, it just takes a toll on my body, toll on my brain, because it's like I can't control 99% of it.
That's true. But what you can control is not being fat.
Yes, definitely that. But yeah, I saw that in the headline. I don't know enough about it. I just know that if the intent is to prevent filtering of information being relayed for an agenda, that's what I obviously agreed with. But there's probably more to it, and I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough, right? Because if we're talking at the most fundamental sense of freedom of speech, it's like it gets tiring after doing a lot of studying on the history of free speech and the restrictions on it and all the things that have gone very wrong when it has been restricted. It almost gets tiring to have to reiterate time and time and again to different people and whatnot why it is virtuous for a society to have free speech and how that's a safeguard to every other liberty and how it prevents a negative future for posterity. And I quite frankly, it's infuriating to see other people who think that the ends justify the means, so to speak, and are totally cool with encroaching on people's First Amendment rights in this country, or just like rights of free speech, assembly, religion in other countries as well. It almost becomes agitating to have to talk about it more and have to speak about why is it a virtuous thing, because I am well studied in the history of that. But then again, going back to what we were talking about how shallow what we learned in history was, I guess someone has to talk about it. I guess people do have to keep speaking about it. Otherwise, it's just going to be a forgotten virtue. It's like the Enlightenment will be forgotten if people don't keep talking about it and keep talking back. So I think I remind myself sometimes, and I come full circle often talking about this stuff again for that reason alone. It's like, man, this is so boring, because it's like, it's very obvious. Like, yeah, we should have free speech. Like, why are these people so stupid? And it's like, well, yeah, but if I don't say anything, then there's no one going to be left standing for me if I don't stand up for them. So that's kind of what I've arrived at.
I think my take is that we live so comfortably. I think most people don't have the perspective or have not lived somewhere else outside of a Western world. I would just say to anybody, go live. I mean, I'm from Taiwan. Go to Taiwan and just talk to people how grateful they are that they can live freely there. Or go to any African country. It's like, I guarantee you won't. I guarantee you'll speak from your nice AC, air-conditioned house with nice lighting,
U-shaped couch.
Yeah, U-shaped couch, U-shaped lap or computer monitors,
Starbucks,
a bed that literally bends in half and is temperature controlled. You have a masseuse. Trust me.
Chris is just listing his entire payroll right now.
You just have no idea how good you have it, or how good we all have it, realistically speaking, that are listening to us right now. But
oh yeah, absolutely. It's so sad. We have a gratefulness problem here. And I mean, there's a study that's been done where people, no matter how well they have it or how bad they have it, the human mind perceives the same amount of problems. So if you have to walk 10 miles to maybe get water that's probably contaminated, and you drink it and have a chance of dying, it's like, in the American mind, it's almost just as much of a problem that is stress inducing and whatnot if your iPhone is not charged, which is remarkable. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons I also urge people, implore people to, study the world, study history and the point that we're at now, and travel as well, because you have such a different sense of gratitude for what you have. Like, we should practice gratitude. It's virtually impossible to be both grateful and then also anxious and stressed and worried about problems at the same time. If you just practice gratitude every day, then you start to realize there's so much more stuff to be grateful for than stuff there is to focus on that's negative. It's just, what do we always tend to focus on is the negative. What's in the news, what you're scrolling through, as you alluded to before. It's all the negativity going on in the world. Oh, this person killed this guy, or this person said this, and all the negativity that's possible, but you never see the clips on social media that's ultra positive. It's much less likely to see that. And I mean, that's what's sad. So ultimately, the media knows what the human mind is. Basically, the media and all these big companies know how to hack the human mind, and it's tough to fight back. So I think it's just every single individual's responsibility to do the best as possible to unplug themselves from that, which is very tough to do, especially when it's so ingrained in our livelihood, in our work, in our and everything that we do.
Yeah, I don't think the kids. I think it's also the kids don't learn any of this stuff anymore. So I think working with clients that are just younger, they don't learn anything at all.
Yeah,
about history anymore. And also, everybody, like, to be fair, most of the kids I've ever worked with, they all cheat now, and they at least, okay, I didn't say cheat. They basically share information. So if they took a test, basically, if they took a test, they know what was on the test, and they share that information within half a second. If they had homework, yes, they have now, teachers getting smarter too. They get ChatGPT to print out different. Yeah, you're right. Get to print out different equations and different numbers. If it for math, it'd be easy. History's a little harder, but basically, the teachers getting smarter too. They're printing out different things where you can have worksheets that have different questions with different answers. So they're trying to combat that, but kids are too smart to actually be fooled. But all I'm trying to get at is that they're not learning the right things and the right lessons more so now more than ever. Before we didn't have information spreading faster than the speed of light. So now you have kids not knowing some big figureheads. You don't have kids understanding the basics of anything. They just understand that they don't have their iPhones, they don't have their tablets, or they don't people don't understand just having running water, house over your head, clothes on your back, food on the table is the biggest luxuries of the world in general.
You're already in the top, having all of those things combined, you're already in the top 1% of all human history compared to the rest of the world and all of human time.
Yeah, so just think that for perspective. And then to have the liberties of having free speech and guns and I guess it's more self-defense or things in that nature. That in itself is its own right, its own section of
the right to govern ourselves.
Yes,
and all the checks on the what would have been the monarch, but that is our executive, and that is our federal government as well. The states checks on that. I mean, that's remarkable. And then people say, well, and I would agree with this. They say, well, it's pointless now because the government's usurped all this power and they've consolidated it in whether it's the just the three main branches in the federal government or the executive, usurping power from Congress, Supreme Court. You could say that, and that's absolutely true, and it's atrocious what's happened. But at the same time, we as voters technically have a conglomerate power to be able to say, well, we don't want any of these people in office anymore. We won't vote for them. But the problem is it's so entrenched in our society, in our psyche now, that, well, there's nothing we could do, so therefore we don't do it. But I can't remember who said it, but I'm reading it right now in an American Revolution book I'm reading by Gordon S. Wood. And the first quote in the book is by a philosopher in the 18th or 17th century. And he says, the difference between a free people and an unfree people is merely their habit of thinking. Which is pretty remarkable to say that and realize that at the time, especially where the world was at. But it's true. You have a group of people who believe that they have God-given inalienable rights and they will act on that. And then you have people that believe that rights are to be restricted or given from their chief magistrates, from the government or the head of government. And now you kind of have that competing philosophy in our own country. You have what our founders stood for and those founding documents, and then you have the other people who just want to tear it all down. And I mean, it's kind of, well, it makes you a little speechless sometimes because I almost don't know what to say about it.
No, I just have family that have been restricted their free speech for basically 100 years. So I can't imagine. They tell me stories all the time. So I can understand it as a first generation Taiwanese American here. So I understand it from that perspective. So any first generation people that come into America, they're definitely always more grateful to be here, more so than anywhere else in the world at the given moment.
You're right. The people who they say are most privileged in this country are actually the least grateful, though, and the people who are by default coming in here as immigrants, the least privileged, are the most grateful.
Yeah. I guess you just don't even know. You don't know what you have until it's gone.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
That's why we should just have a button for the people that like complain so much about how bad they have it, like while sipping their Starbucks, or they're just like shipped instantly to Palestine. It's like they're just dropped in the middle of the war zone. It's like, and then you have like 10 seconds to be like, do you want to come back? Do you want to come back? Was it that bad?
They just, it's so tough, right? Because I think the at the big scale, we don't have actual problems. Like actual problems. So
of course not. Yeah.
So yes, you're okay. So here you're like, oh my God, like how could you possibly say that? It's like, yes, we have kids. Like, I have a kid, right? So all I'm trying to get at is it's like the problems that we have, it's our perception of the problems and then what we do with those problems. It's not the problems themselves. And if you really think about it, it's like the problems have been long reigning this entire time. The difference now is we're battling it in different mediums. You have freedom of speech that's being safeguarded right now by the blocking or the restriction of information. You have, economies will always go up and down by inflation, by whatever it might be, by the means of the people. But it continues to go up and down. But it doesn't mean that people can't make money.
Yeah.
Right. In terms of like housing, it's like, yes, there are less houses on the market, but more people in the U.S. have actually places to live.
Yeah.
Right. So the problems have changed, but the whole point is that majority of the problems aren't necessarily out of our grasp to be fixed. It's the perception of it, and basically it's like the perception, and then what we're being told that we need to be focusing on is a lot. It's basically what we're focusing on is a major issue, more so than the problem themselves.
Yeah, I would say that just because something's less of a problem relative to the world doesn't mean that it shouldn't be tried to be changed. But at the same time, it doesn't mean we shouldn't be grateful. Because as soon as we're not grateful for what we still have, it's very easy to lose it. It's almost like our relationship with us and our freedoms is the relationship between a man and a woman. A lot of times you lose a significant other for taking it for granted, and then you realize, oh man, like let's say like the typical cheater, they cheat because of like the 5% of what they thought that their girlfriend didn't have, and then they're like, oh fuck, this girl, she's actually kind of ugly that I cheated with, and well, she's not as sweet, and oh man, like the grass wasn't greener, it was just a bunch of shit. It was brown. It was like brown grass, basically, just covered in shit. And then they want to go back to the girlfriend. Then it's too late, right? Because they already cheated. So I think is that our brains are cheating on freedom right now, is what's going on as a conglomerate or aggregate of our society. And we're not grateful for it. And then eventually it's going to be too late when we realize, oh, that's really bad that we took it for granted, and look what's happened. And then as soon as we try to do something about it, it very well might be too late. Really exploit what's unacceptable. And if we did that as a whole, then they'd either say, okay, well, they'd have a complete crisis of meaning, and there'd be no men for them at all, because it'd only be strong men. And then they'd see that the women who want a strong masculine man are getting everything that they want, and they're not getting what they want. And then eventually they'd be forced with the decision of like, okay, I have to rethink some of my beliefs and act a different way, or basically plummet.
Yeah, it'd be tough.
But men have to take responsibility for that. Like, it's not like, because you only control what you can control. So instead of men as a whole saying like, oh, there's no good women anymore, like they all sleep with like a million people, and none of them are good in this country, like you just start demanding better instead of playing along with their stupid game.
Well, yes, but I would say as a whole, you have to mess with the entire thing. So it's basically like, yes, women's perception of mating is so skewed now, where they're only seeing the same top 10% of men. So then you think to yourself, it's like, well, if most men under the age of 30 is not getting laid,
yeah,
right, and it's like a high percentage, it's like over 60%. So if they're reporting they're not getting sex in the past year, it's like it's hard to be objective with women when you're coming from a scarcity mindset. But now if 60% of the population has a scarcity mindset with women, and telling them that means you're trying them to be more and more stoic, which is also, like I'm saying, it's just everything's against you, right? So like your innate body is trying to tell you, trying to get sex, trying to reproduce. And then you hear guys like us and people in the sphere trying to tell you, it really is on us in the sense of, imagine you're not getting laid and then you're trying to tell other people you don't want to conform and go on, look at porn or, I can't say that. That actually is a bad word to say on
Just say corn.
Yeah. So basically,
like transgender is transformer now. Porn is corn.
Yeah. So corn. So basically it's like, corn. So like whether it be with corn, whether
it'll be so funny to have the censored word with the bleep and then like corn and then like, fuck, I keep hitting this thing. And then like, the censored word transformer.
Yeah, so like basically it's like with corn, OnlyFans, everything that portrays Instagram, anything that portrays the woman's body, that we as men need to also stop divulging in or indulging in that. So it's tough. It's like you're coming from this mindset with all of these things at the cost of nothing. Yeah. Literally nothing. It's almost all free. And then to be like, no, I'm not going to do it. It's just, we have to do it as a whole too. It can't just be one guy.
No, because then that one guy's just going to get all the best looking girls. That's the whole point, is like that one guy, just every girl's going to like that one guy that actually knows what they want.
Yeah, so that's what's tough. So that's why it's like, it's the whole thing. It's with almost every big topic, whether it is social dynamics, whether it is even climate change. Like it's not like right now, as the U.S. is doing more than ever to combat climate change. We have percentage-wise, have done better than most countries in terms of our policies from 2010s to 2020s. Yeah. We've actually reduced it almost over 100%. So it's not that we're not doing a better job. It's that, yes, we as one country are doing great. What about the other ones? The
world, yeah.
What about everyone else? So it's like, it's like we right now we are the one guy that's not watching porn. That's not doing shit. That's not watching corn. That's not watching corn. That's not doing this. Not doing that. Yeah. Great. Where the rest of the world is still doing it. So it's not that we shouldn't do it. It's just the impact that we have is not great enough to where it's impact.
Although what I would say though is that it's still beneficial to impact the few compared to none, and then sometimes that trickles. And I'm not saying that it automatically means it trickles to every single person in every society or anything like that, but someone like Jordan Peterson's a great example, who was just like, he took a stand for something he believed in. He wasn't trying to be famous, and now he's influenced millions of men to lead lives as better men. And it just started with his job that he did every day. Woke up every day for like 40 years, did the same thing. That's what it started with. So it takes more men as individuals first, not even as a group, I think, to be the best men that they can be, to be able to, just through their actions, inspire others around them. And I think that is better than nothing. But I see what you're saying. At scale, with a large society, what happens?
You need to change the whole morals of the society.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I was going to say, is that, and that comes down to every issue that we have in our country. And that comes down to, if you were to debate a topic, I think morals, whether they exist, if they're not, what they are, and who gets to decide what they are, is really the biggest questions in life, and then ultimately dictates your answer to every other question you might have. So a lot of times when we ask questions, the question we ask is more important than the answer, because the answer is often a temporary solution or just in theory. Like, oh, how do we get the government to stop acting the way they are? How do we get them to not encroach on our rights, or not do this, or have this policy? And it's like, the answer is you don't, unless there's a fundamental changing of the morals of the country. You need to fundamentally change the moral fabric of the country to make a widespread change. And without that, nothing grand will happen. No grand change will happen.
If you got value from this podcast and want to continue getting value from us, follow us on Instagram. My handle, Coach_Chris Lee.
Mine is @Benji_Tucker19.